Hey, how's it going? It's Osama. We're back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about operant conditioning, what each quadrant of it means, and then if we have enough time, we'll talk about kind of how I use them and how I get into that different aspect of training dogs. So to start out, our four quadrants are positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. Hup. Good boy. So when we talk about positive reinforcement, we have essentially rewarding a dog to increase the likelihood of a behavior, right? So, and before that, let's kind of break down what they mean, right? So positive in this system just means addition. It means adding something external to do something. And then reinforcement means we want more of this behavior to happen, and negative means we're taking away. And punishment just means we want less likelihood of this behavior happening in the future. So positive reinforcement, I'm adding a good thing to increase the likelihood of this behavior happening. Negative reinforcement, I'm taking something away to increase the likelihood of this happening. Positive punishment, I'm adding something to decrease the likelihood of this happening. And negative punishment, I'm taking something away to decrease the likelihood of this happening. With that being said, we'll go back to kind of what is positive reinforcement. I won't take too much time. Everybody usually knows what positive reinforcement is. I ask the dog to do something, yes, and I reward. I increase the chances that this thing is going to happen again. Then we get into why that's good and why that's bad. The good is that it's pretty easy to get motivation for food. Puppies pretty much function off of their bellies. So if you have some valuable treats, it's a lot easier to teach a lot of different things early on with treats and positive reinforcement and things like that. The challenge becomes what you have isn't always more valuable than your environment. And your environment is not distractions, it's competing motivators. So if I don't have the highest value motivator and my dog's been conditioned and trained to essentially respond to the highest value motivator, I kind of come to a crossroads where, hey, as much as I want to give this dog treats, chasing a ball is just more valuable, and then there's really no way to move beyond that point and create reliability. That brings us into negative reinforcement. So with negative reinforcement, I call this the nagging stage, right? But it's essentially creating a constant low-level pressure to get the dog to move into a behavior, and then they remove that pressure, therefore making it more likely they'll offer that solution again. So for example, with Bingo here, if I put a little bit of pressure backwards, and what I'm looking for is him to take a step back, as soon as he does, the pressure goes away. The next time I present that pressure, he's more likely to offer the same solution that worked the first time to get that pressure to go away. Boom, so he gives me that little pause, step back, pressure goes away. And we use this as a means of creating essentially double motivators for every behavior. So if I offer him a reward for sitting down, and I also put a little bit of pressure upwards, and that's a means of getting him to sit down, I now have two means of motivating this dog, one from negative reinforcement and one from positive reinforcement, to complete a specific behavior. So whenever we're doing this, we're looking to create another stage in reliability. Then this moves me into negative punishment. So when you think of negative punishment, think your dog is trying to do something to get something, and I want them to offer me a different behavior, so I take away the thing that they're going for. The easiest example with this is if I'm holding a ball and I've got a dog that's jumping up to get my ball. All I have to do is withhold or remove that ball every single time that they jump up for it, and I'm using what's called negative punishment. I'm not giving the dog what they're looking for by taking away what they're looking for, and it forces the dog to try a different behavior. Bingo, up. Good boy. It forces the dog to try a different behavior in order to get what they're looking for. So after 3 or 4 times where they jump and they don't get that ball, maybe they're gonna sit or lay down, and in that moment, I would mark it and I would throw that reward, or I would give them what they were looking for. So this is a good means of teaching your dog to offer different behaviors, and especially in a puppy phase where your dog's kind of creative with offering different stuff, or maybe they get stuck on certain commands that you've been working on pretty frequently, it's a lot easier to get them to change up what they're doing by using negative reinforcement. Negative punishment. Now we get into positive punishment. So this is usually where a lot of questions come up and things like that. And the whole point of positive punishment is that we do need to decrease the likelihood of something happening. Now, the biggest thing with positive reinforcement is going to create, to some extent, suppression. So you have to be mindful of whether or not you are actually looking to suppress what's going on. So if your dog is being disobedient, that is something that you would prefer to be less likely to happen in the future. So you can use positive punishment. You can add a leash correction. You can add any form of pressure, a pressure significant enough that the dog is not likely to repeat that behavior in the future. But where it's misused is you can't use this to modify behaviors that are established. For example, if I ask my dog to lay down and they give me a sit, I don't necessarily want to create suppression towards sitting. So it's not a behavior I'm looking to stop, it's something I'm looking to change. In that scenario, I would use my negative reinforcement. Now, later on down the dog's life, if they're just not paying attention to you, that's a different story. But we're mainly talking about using a system for raising puppies. So when you're thinking about positive punishment, you should always think, is this something that I don't prefer to be done in a different way? Is this something I'm truly trying to cut out completely? Or is this something that I should probably teach my dog a behavior and then ask them to offer me this behavior whenever they're doing this thing that I don't like? And when you combine these 4 quadrants, you get a much more balanced system of teaching your dog, but you ultimately end up with reliability. And in my experience, and many people like me, using one quadrant, regardless of whether it's just positive reinforcement or just negative reinforcement or just punishment or whatever it is, you don't really get a well-rounded dog. So in order to get a nice, calm, relaxed, well-rounded dog, you have to be able to pull from each one whenever you need something. It's like, what's this camera doing? You have to be able to pull from each one whenever you need to teach something to your dog. So the brain only receives information in so many ways, and it only modifies behavior, in so many ways. So getting in the habit of understanding where you can apply from all 4 different quadrants is very crucial in raising a very well-rounded and reliable dog when you take them out. Now, you can get a dog that's very food motivated and you can get very far with positive reinforcement only. You can get a dog who's extremely stubborn and you feel like you can't really use food and they don't really care about food. Every single dog has a means of applying some training from each quadrant and being successful with that dog. So the more you feel dependent upon one quadrant is the more you should kind of take a step back and really assess how you're going about teaching the dog whatever behavior it is that you're looking for. So with that being said, here, let's let this guy roam around. It won't keep you tied up, buddy. So it's very important to keep in mind you don't want to get too attached to any quadrant, and you also don't want to believe that one quadrant is fair or humane and one quadrant is not. I know this is going to bring up a lot of questions and a lot of displeasure with different stuff. Talk about dogs acting, and that's Carlos pulling up right now, but dogs from a distance will pretty much always bark. So you have your nice, calm, stable, Nala's right there just hanging out, Tommy's right there as well, and then you have your dogs that are a little bit more suspicious and they took off and went to the gate. Even something like that, do I necessarily want to use positive reinforcement, positive punishment, negative reinforcement, or negative punishment? I can assess that situation and decide what would be the most valuable quadrant to use in order to get the end goal that I'm looking for. With that being said, we'll kind of move into, again, I'll add a couple videos down the road breaking down each quadrant and giving examples of how I train within that quadrant. For now, have a great rest of your day, and thank you for tuning in. Have a good one.